Welcome back to the Always Reading Book Club. It is your girl Kiki Reader, and I finally made a decision. And we are starting a new series today, and it is called the Arranged series, and it is by Stella Gray, and book 1 is called The Deal. We have a prequel when we first start reading. We have Stefan Zorik, his father Constantine, and Senator Lindsay. They're having a drink in Constantine's office, and it's in celebration of a union of families. Constantine is the owner of KMZ Modeling Agency, which is one of, if not the best modeling agency in the world. We don't know how the families are reuniting. We can guess, but that's how it starts off. So then we go to Victoria Lindsay, but she goes by Tori. Now this is Senator Lindsay's daughter. It's her 18th birthday, and her father is having a party for her. She also has a stepmother named Michelle, who she actually likes, and she's been in the picture since she was like really young, because her mother died, I think, when she was like 2 or 4 or something like that, super young. So she has ambition, Tori does, and she wants to go to college at the University of Chicago, and she wants to study their linguistics program because that's her great love. So her father doesn't want her to go, and so therefore he refuses to pay for it. Even tells her that men don't like smarty pants. Wow, I was like, that's wild. Her father is very controlling, and he hasn't even allowed her to date up until this point. So she's dancing with a congressman guy, I think his name was Ellis, and he's of course staring at her breasts the whole time. Her father comes to get her and takes her to the side, and he says, "This is your present," and it's Stefan Zorik, and he lets her know, "You two are to be married." Now, when he took her to the side, it wasn't just the two of them; it was her stepmother, and Constantine, Stefan's father, and she, of course, is shocked, and she's like, "What do you mean to be married?" And so it appeared that everyone else knew but her. And her stepmother, Michelle, was kind of upset. And she looked to her father and was just kind of like, "You didn't tell her? You know? Like, you could have kind of given the girl a heads up." Her father was like, "I thought she would like the surprise." He's asinine, of course. So then Stefan took her hand, kissed it, and then he kissed the inside of her wrist. And it made old girl wet. Gotta remember, she's a virgin. She hasn't dated, so there's no comparison she can make it to. She just knows she likes what she sees. He has this effect on her. Michelle was like, "Let's have a little powwow," basically. So it was Tori, her father, and Michelle. They went off to the side. They have a little talk. Her father was like, "Well, you knew that something like this was bound to happen." But she was like, "Yeah, but I didn't know it was going to be this soon." So then her father starts to get really angry and was like, "This is a good match. He needs alliances like this, apparently." Now, why in the world a senator needs an alliance with someone that, owns a modeling agency? I don't get it, but that's what he says. So he also told her, "This guy, he'll be able to take care of you. He can take care of that little degree that you want." Now that caught her attention. So her father was like, "I saw the way you were looking at him when he walked in. You practically undressed him the way you were looking at him." So she knows she really doesn't have a choice. And my thing is, make the choices in front of you work to your advantage, right? So if your father is saying, "Okay, this has to be an alliance," you ain't got no money, and here's an opportunity for you to get someone that has money that can give you what you need so that you can be on your own. Okay, make it work. It sucks, but it kind of feels like with him making the statement, "You knew this was bound to happen," that means you had already anticipated that at some point your marriage was going to be arranged. So it's just a little sooner than later. Okay, I'm going to make this work to my advantage. That's how I see it. Can't always be full of. So she goes back out. She speaks with Stefan, and they have a talk, and he likes her word humor. She loves words. That's the reason She wants to study linguistics at the University of Chicago. He tells her, you aren't what I thought you were going to be. And she tells him about the situation with college. And he's shocked that her father doesn't want to pay for her to go to college. He tells her, listen, I'll pay for it. And she asks, what he wants from this. And he says he's getting what he wants from this. His father won't leave him the company unless he's married. But she can also tell there's more that he's not saying. So then he pulled out a little blue box and gave her a beautiful princess cut diamond ring, asked her to marry him, and that they would make their own rules. And so she agreed. But when she walked back in, she saw her father and Stefan's father standing together and wondered if what had happened was just a real moment or if it was just for show. We fast forward 3 months later. They're getting married. Wedding's beautiful. She met all of his family. He has a younger brother named Luca. He's a player. He has a sister named Mara, but everyone calls her MZ. She's a photographer, and just like a host of other family and friends. So she talks with her friend Grace, who she's known since she was younger. And that's so funny saying that because she's 18. And she wants to know if Luca is single. And she's also shocked how fast everything has happened with this whole, relationship with Stefan. So she hasn't told Grace that this is an arranged marriage. And I kind of get it. Some stuff you don't need to tell everybody, I kind of get it. So her stepmother, Michelle, comes up to give her a dress that Stefan had picked out for her to wear. And her stepmother gave her some white lingerie to wear. And when her and Stefan finally make it up to the room, she goes in to change in the bathroom. And when she comes out, he's passed out. And she can't shake the feeling that she has possibly made a terrible mistake. So she wakes up and he's already dressed. They're going to Vienna for their honeymoon and taking a private jet. And he's all about work and doesn't say much to her at all. And so she falls asleep for most of that 9-hour flight. When they get to Vienna, she's all excited. She's wanting to know, what are they going to do? He has no plans of doing anything but working. So he tells her she can do a tour. She starts asking him different questions, his favorite color, just trying to get to know him. And he gets annoyed. And it's like, what will it take for me to have 30 minutes of silence? And she tells him she wants to go on this famous Ferris wheel. And so he agrees. So they head back to the hotel after the Ferris wheel, which looked like an old castle, which she loved. And after they entered the suite, she was like, this looks like, straight out of a Jane Austen book. And so he tells her they're going out later, wear something nice, be ready in an hour. Well, old girl starts having all kind of thoughts while in the shower of Stefan kissing her and doing so much to her body, and that the girl starts rubbing on her clit. And she starts feeling as if someone's watching her. And when she opens her eyes, she sees Stefan staring at her with such intensity, and she sees his bulge. So she closes her eyes again, makes herself calm, and when she opens her eyes again, he's gone. She gets dressed, and he tells her they're going to the opera and dinner, and he has a present for her, and it's a beautiful diamond teardrop necklace. They go to dinner, but it isn't a romantic dinner. It's a work dinner, and there's a guy there named Marco. So she tried to interject her word games that she does with her word origins, but it didn't work. So she excused herself, went to the restroom, and when she came back, she hears Stefan saying, I gave you enough information to find her. And then he sees her and says, we're leaving for the opera now. So they go to the opera, and in spite of everything, it was a beautiful experience. They get back to the hotel, and she tells him to wait a moment. She goes in and change into her white lingerie. And when she comes out, he says, I gotta go, and he leaves. Now she's thinking, what the hell is their honeymoon? Like, what is going on? Who's this woman he's looking for? And what's going to happen to her when he finds her? So we switch to Stefan's POV, point of view. I love it. And he's trying to get the thoughts out of his mind of her, but he can't. So he goes to see Marco at a pub, and Marco tells him that they still haven't found this woman, whom we still don't know who it is. And Stefan tells him to pause on the investigation. We find out that Stefan is trying to discourage Tori from any connection, as he can't give it to her, and this is only an arrangement. But the very thought of that woman makes him hard. So Tori wakes up, and of course the bed is undisturbed. She goes searching for him in the suite, and she sees that he had apparently slept on the couch. He appears dressed and tells her, "See you later." And she's like, "Where you going?" And like, "Where were you last night?" And talking about how she wanted to spend the day together and thought that, this was their honeymoon. And he was just like, "I went out." And let her know again that this is an arrangement. And she gets what she wants with her degree, and he gets what he wants. And basically, don't expect anything else. And then he leaves. So then Tori decides she's going to just get the most expensive stuff. So she orders a ton of breakfast stuff off the menu, room service. Tells the woman, give yourself a generous tip. She goes to the spa, same thing. She gets the gold package, the most expensive one, has a large tip placed on there as well. Then she leaves from there, has a lunch in the cafe at the hotel. She's on her way up to the elevators when she sees Stefan coming with a leggy brunette, and they're going into the elevators. And she is like, "What the hell?" And he was touching the woman like on her back and stuff like that, and the thought just like was like, this seems intimate, So then she kind of follows them. Well, she thought she was following them, but she wasn't. She thought they were going back to their suite, but when she got back to the suite, no one was there. And then her thoughts kind of goes, and she's thinking like, it can't get worse than this, because it's like the girl had spent most of her time while she was in the spa, she was fantasizing about Stefan, and then here he was with a whole other chick. So she talks to a sales girl and asks her if she's ever been cheated on. The girl tells her she has, and told her what happened and how she confronted the guy at his job and got the guy fired. And then she saw an Hermes bag in the window. Had to be used, but anyway, I digress. She bought it. She just racked up a ton of charges, and she asked the woman, "You work on commission, don't you?" And she's like, "Yeah." So she bought tons of stuff. So she bought this really sexy dress, and she went to the bar at the hotel, and she was having her cocktails, and she didn't bring her phone. And they were supposed to have a dinner date at 7 o'clock that evening, her and Stefan, but she decided she wasn't going. So that's why she left her phone. Well, she's having her drinks, and then up walks a Frenchman, and they're talking, flirting. And then Stefan comes in and storms over there. And he's like, "Who are you?" And the guy introduced himself, and he shook the guy's hand and then told him, "You need to get the fuck away from my wife." The Frenchman hauled ass. And then Stefan grabbed Tori, and they took off upstairs. So she was like, "Where are we going? I thought we had a reservation." And Stefan says, "I ate at 7. He's like, "If you want food, call room service." And then he left her, stormed in the bedroom, slammed the door. And she's kind of thinking, "Oh my gosh, what have I done? I traded one cage for another." So the next morning, she of course has a headache from all the drinking, and they're headed now to Budapest. They get there, and he hasn't really said anything to her except for barking out orders earlier that morning about when they were going to leave to take flight. So she asked him, like, "What's the deal? What's going on? Like, can I go sightseeing?" And he was just like, "You're not going anywhere after that little stunt you pulled last night with the Frenchman. Not to mention all the money you spent on your little shopping spree." So he told her she was just going to stay in the business conference center where he was in the hotel. She was going to be in there with him. And so she was like, "Well, hell, what better way to understand him than to see him in his environment, which is business, Might as well." So she saw a list of different models and stuff, and she starts thinking that possibly the woman she saw with him the day previously was just that. It was just a model, nothing more. Then her mind starts kind of thinking, damn it, like I went childish. I wouldn't spend all this money because I'm thinking he's doing something, and it probably wasn't even anything being done. So then she's thinking like, okay, I'm going to make it up to him. But at the same time, she needs to get the hell out of this business conference room. So after a while, she says, can I go upstairs, take a nap? And so she goes upstairs. She calls her stepmother, Michelle, and she realizes she needs some help if she's going to, like, get him to pay her attention, spend time with her. And so she tells Michelle what's going on, but she leaves out the temper tantrum that she threw, and that she got drunk and flirted with a man and all the shopping. She left all that out. So then basically Michelle tells her, he's a busy man. You need to be what he needs, and you're getting a lot out of this deal as well. And you need to look at it as that. It's a trade-off. You don't get the romance dream part of it. But she also told her, like, do something that he would need for you to do, So how do I say this? She also made the comment, he might be a little scared as well because you're a virgin and you kind of need to let him know that you want him. And so now this is her plan and what she's going to do. Okay. The part about him being, he's super busy, totally understand that. I think where we have an issue, I have to remember this girl is only 18, right? I have to remember that because she annoys me sometimes. And I have to remember she's only 18. She doesn't have any experience. She feels a spark with this man. And that's kind of the problem. Because if she didn't feel anything, I think she would be okay. She wouldn't be concerned about spending time being around. She wouldn't care because she doesn't feel a spark, right? But because she felt something that she's never felt before, she wants more of that. And she can tell that he is purposely denying her it. And so what her stepmother's telling her, okay, yeah, he's a busy person, X, Y, and Z, yeah. But at the same time, he is avoiding being with her, because she's done the sexy. She's put on the lingerie. He knew she was going to put on lingerie. And he made sure that first night he passed out on their honeymoon night, The next night, some other BS, So he's purposely trying not to sleep with her. And she sees that. And I think the way she described it to Michelle, I don't think was really accurate. And so Michelle kind of gave her, like, what someone would normally tell you. Oh, you're being a nag, or you're not seducing him correctly. You know what I mean? But if she had said, like, he was watching me while I was making myself come in the shower, and I saw that he was hard. Like, I feel like if she had just said, like, okay, this is what's happening, I think maybe Michelle would have given her some other advice, because she would have been like, okay, well, what's going on? Because that is a little something, and I don't think that has anything to do with you being a virgin. But that was just my little mini rant. So she sends him a text and says that she's ordering room service for dinner at 7 and asks, will that work for you? And he was like, yeah, that'll work. Thank you. So she's thinking, okay, he accepted it. I'm going to try and seduce this man to make sure he never looks at another woman. So she gets herself all sexied up, and of course he does not show up. He doesn't come in until hours later. He did text her and tell her, I'm not going to be able to make it at around like 8 o'clock, like an hour later. And was like, just go ahead without me. But she waited up because she wanted to talk. And so when he got there, he's like, why did you wait up? She was like, because we need to talk. He's like, no, we don't. There's nothing to talk about. This is an arrangement. This is about convenience. And so she basically let him know, I know you want me. I saw you watch me in the shower. And he was like, I would watch anyone in the shower if they were fingering themselves. And so she was just like, I see how you look at me. I know you want me. And she kept saying stuff. And then I guess it got too much for old boy. And he grabbed her and just started kissing her. And it was just so extreme and just so intense. And then he told her, now you've been kissed. And then he stormed into the bedroom and slammed the door. So Tori wakes up the next morning. Girl is still thinking about that kiss, but she's also upset at the same time. So she orders room service, and she texts Grace and tries to give her the situation, but she tries to do it as like a hypothetical situation. But Grace isn't stupid, She knows this is about your ass. She tells her a little similar of what Michelle said, which is he could just be freaking out because you're a virgin and he's going to mess up your first time. So then Stefan comes in the room and she tries to make small talk with him, but he's like too busy looking at his phone. There's a knock on the door. It's a woman. She automatically, of course, gets jealous. The woman's name is Oksana, and we find out she's going to be the person that takes her sightseeing and showing her the city. So the email that she had received, because earlier she had gotten a text, and it was going to be, she thought it was Stefan's itinerary. It was his schedule, but the sightseeing wasn't going to be with her. She's got to do it with, is clearly a model. So he leaves. They go sightseeing. She's going to try and pump Oksana for information. So when they're having lunch, she asks her, have you worked for KMZ Models for a long time? And she was like, yeah, I have. And she kept saying how great of a boss that Stefan was. And then she said how, he knows all the best places in the city, and that last night, and then she stopped talking. So now Tori's pissed because she knows his ass was somewhere with her last night. And so then she gets a phone call. It's Stefan, and he tells her, your father's had a heart attack. They get back to the hotel. The staff's running around trying to pack up everything. And when she walks in, everyone just kind of stops and looks at her with this sympathy. Even Stefan looks at her with sympathy. And she thinks, she's the only one going back, but he's going as well. But she's thinking like, oh my gosh, that's so sweet. Like, he's going to come with me. Well, they get on the plane. It's a private jet, of course. It's a bunch of models. It's KMZ models. And they're having a party. So she's sitting there absolutely miserable. He's entertaining these models. And so she just was like, the hell, This is pure fucking hell. So she goes to the back bedroom. And she just cries and cries. And then she hears the door open. And she's thinking someone's coming in by mistake. But then she smells his cologne. He comes and lays next to her, holds her. And she just starts crying again. And he just tells her, your father's a strong man. He'll make it through it. She cries even more. And eventually she falls asleep. Before she went to sleep, her thought in her head was, maybe he's not such a heartless man. And this is kind of my thing. And I understand that when people are hurting, it's kind of difficult to act like you don't care. I get that. But if you're going to be, it's like he keeps doing this flip-flop bullshit, Like, he wants to be mean to her. And then, like, were you not trying to make her miserable by having a bunch of hoes in there? No, not hoes. I should not say that. They're models. So you had a bunch of models and you're like, you guys are partying, drinking, right? Well, he might not have been drinking, but he was serving them drinks. These people are in this great mood. You know what this woman's just found out, what she's going through. It's like, were you trying to make her miserable? And then if you were trying to make her miserable, why the fuck did you come in the back room and then try and comfort her? That's that bullshit where I'm like, okay, you need to figure your shit out as well. You know what I mean? Because that's confusing. That really is. For a grown woman, yet an 18-year-old. You know what I'm saying? So she's at her father's place for like a month, helping him out. Because he's really weak. He did have to get a pacemaker put in. So Michelle and her basically had to wait on him hand and foot. Not to say that was too much different than the way it was before. So now it's time for her to go back to the city. Stefan's called her a car. And he's been texting her. And he seems warmer, via the text messages. And that's been super nice for her. So then before she leaves, she goes to tell her father bye. And she asks him how he's feeling. And he's kind of upset. He looks frail, but not as bad. Like, he's a lot better than what he was before, but he still looks weaker. And he just told her again, don't be so preoccupied with your schoolwork. Men don't like women that prioritize other things over them. So she tells him he supports me going to school, and, that's not going to be a problem. And again, but you got to remember, her father's older. That's an antiquated view of how, and some people still like that. You know what I mean? Some people, that type of a relationship would still work, but every relationship is not going to be like that, and it sucks that he's trying to like put that on her and make her go, he can have any woman he wants, and, he chose you, so you need to make sure he understands that, you appreciate him and you understand how special he is. Okay, well, what the fuck? Is she shit? Like, come on. But again, this is what he knows, and guess what? The wife he has, that's how she treats him, like he's everything. And what she needs and what she wants doesn't really matter. So, he's going to tell his kid that same shit. Yeah. Because he assumes powerful men, this is how it works. And a lot of them, I'm quite sure they still like that. They like for it to be that way. And if you're okay with that as a woman, it's cool. We all have the choice, But it sucks that she's telling him, hey, he's cool with me going to school. He likes the idea that I'm going to school. And he's trying to keep giving her rebuttals. It's just, oh my gosh. He's an ass. She gets back to Chicago. Oh, where her father lives is in Springfield, Illinois. It was like a couple of hours outside of Chicago. I don't know if I said that, but that's where she was. So she gets back. It's a huge, beautiful building, big condo. There's a personal chef named Greta. She lets her know, hey, dinner's going to be at 7. She asks her if she wants to give her a tour of the place. And she, of course, says sure. She takes her around. She takes herself to the master bedroom. Greta does. Which confused her a little bit because she figured she was going to be in a separate room. So she goes, she takes a shower, everything, and fixes her hair. And all she has on is a robe, nothing else. She's bent over. She's getting something out of one of the suitcases. And she catches him watching her. So then she's like, okay, fuck what happened before. I'm going to get him, So she starts walking towards him and taking her robe off. And he was like, don't start that, kitty cat, because he calls her kitty cat. And she was like, she wanted him. That was it. So he grabbed her. They started kissing. And then he took her in front of the mirror and was like, I want you to watch me finger fuck you. And so he held one hand with her hair, and he was and rubbing her clit with the other one. So she came, but that wasn't enough. Girl wanted the D. She starts to unbuckle his pants, and the freaking doorbell rings. So then, of course, he was like, shit, So he had to buckle up, get himself all together. He tells her, could you try not to look so freshly fucked? So she gets herself all together and goes to see everyone. It's Luca, MZ, and their father, Constantine. And so she doesn't like Constantine. She gets creepy vibes from him. He always lingers when he looks at her, and she thinks it's just super creepy. So they're going to the dining room. They sit down. They start talking business. And the dad says, were you able to get Oksana? And he told his dad that Oksana wasn't in Budapest. He didn't run into her. He couldn't find her. But he tapped Tori on the leg to kind of let her know, don't you spill the beans, don't say shit. And so at first she thought about spilling the beans, but then she was like, she doesn't like Constantine anyway. And she doesn't know fully why he said it. So she's like, you know what? I'll just keep my mouth shut. So then the father asked her, how's it being in the new palace? And she was like, it's been lovely. And she excuses herself. She goes to the bathroom. She comes out. Luca's standing there, blocking her way. He tells her, you look really good tonight. And then he said something about, you should model for me. And she was like, no, thank you. And he just kept pressing her about it. And he would not let her pass. And then he grabbed her arm. So I'm thinking that possibly they're doing some type of trafficking. Because the father had made the statement that I'll let you know what the client needs or something along those lines. And I know that, with modeling, you have clients. I get that. But just the way that it was written, I don't know. I just kind of feel like this. I wonder if they're trafficking women. Especially for him to lie about not seeing the Oksana girl, but we know that he saw her. I kind of wonder, just saying. So then, just when he had grabbed her arm, that's when Stefan came, jacked him up, and told him, don't you put your fucking hands on her ever again. If you do, I'm going to kill you. That scared the guy, and he runs off. And Stefan tells her, I signed up to marry a virgin. You make sure it stays that way. And she was just like, the fuck? And I kind of was like, wait a minute. They had to know, Stefan was kind of wired that way. So why would you even fucking try it? You know what I'm saying? Like, why would you even try that? So that didn't make sense to me for Luca to do that. That was just weird. And then it's like, you see that the dude was coming at her. So why the fuck would you say to her, I marry a virgin, make sure it stays that way? Bitch, I wasn't trying to fuck him. Like, that's just kind of fucked up. So I didn't like Stefan in that. I haven't liked him so far. So this didn't help. So then she goes back to dinner. Rest of the evening pretty much is normal. She keeps up the whole perfect wife thing going. Because she knows how to be that, being that she was a senator's daughter. So they kept talking about business. MZ took her to the kitchen and was like, they always talk about work. And she told her, we should hang out. They exchanged numbers. Everyone leaves. And then she has a couple. She had a little wine while she was at the table. So now she's talking real bold. So she tells him, when everyone's gone, she wants more of what happened earlier. So she basically was like, what's the deal with you? Like, this makes no sense. And he said something slick to her and was like, he said something slick to her. I can't remember what he said. But her ass said to him, well, if you don't want to take care of it, then I'll just have Luca come back and take care of me, since you don't want to. I said, well, damn. Did you see that damn boy jack that man up? He ain't say no shit like that. So, but that got his fucking attention. And he rushed over to her, started kissing her with such intensity. And then he said, did I pay for this dress? And he did, because it was one of the ones she got in Vienna. So he snatched it off of her, ripped the panties off of her. He said, I want nothing on you but the heels. And then he told her, go and get on the bed and spread them. She wasn't moving fast enough, so he slapped her ass. And then he had her on the bed, and he started fingering her and stuff. And he's naked by now, too, as well. And then he just went in, and she was beyond gone. But the whole time, he kept saying to her, you're fucking mine. You're fucking mine, and no one else will ever touch your body. And he was like, everything of you is mine. And it was just like on another level. So poor girl wound up coming twice, and then he came inside her. So they settle into a routine. Like, they both have their daily lives. She goes to school, he goes to work, and then when he comes home, he pounds her to sleep. And that's their routine every night. And it's working so far. She's fine with it. One day she comes home. Greta had made, I want to say, lobster ravioli for them. And so she also had told her there was some French bread. She's like, it'll be 5 minutes in the oven. Don't leave it longer. You're going to burn it. And so Tori was like, no. I'll get it out. So then the door opens and she thinks it's Greta, but it's Stefan. And she was like, oh, I thought it was Greta. And he was like, oh, I'm sorry to disappoint you. So then she's like, you want some dinner? And he's like, sure. She's like, do you want to eat in the dining room? He was like, the couch is fine. So they sit on the couch. They kind of ate in silence. But it was like a nice, comfortable silence. So they were good. They went to bed. He's rougher. He was a little rough with her, but she finds that she likes that. She likes it rough. And so he was just like, bend over. He just pounds into her oblivion. And so she had told him, actually, I forgot to say this, before, while they were on the couch, while she was like getting his dinner for him, she had told him like they were having like a little soiree at her college for like the freshmen. And she asked him, if he could come. It was at 8:00, and he says, I'll let you know if my schedule allows it. Next day comes, she's getting ready to leave. He sent a card for her, and she was like, you know what? Even if he can't come, she was appreciative of the fact that he sent a card for her. Like, at least you're on my brain to do something like that. Even if you can't be here, you're still thinking about me. And I thought that was sweet. She gets to the event. She's talking to a few professors. One of her professors introduces her to the dean. While she's talking to the dean, she feels a hand on her back, and Stefan she's shocked to see him, and he starts talking, just singing her praises. And, girl loves language. And so she's just in awe, and she's feeling that. She's like, God damn it, I think I'm falling in love with my husband. This is not going to be good. good. So then we switch back to Stefan's point of view, and he's basically like saying, how fucked I shouldn't have came here. This was supposed to be an arrangement. I'm breaking rules. So he was there for like 2 hours, and then he'd had enough, and he was like mad at himself for coming to the event. And so he grinned and grabbed. He was like, it's time to go. So they leave. He didn't say anything to her because, again, he's trying to put back up the walls. It's not working. So then he has her take his dick out, and he teaches her how to suck it. But she's actually pretty good for a first timer, which only turned his ass on even more. The fact that no one else had this from her. That whole possessiveness that he didn't even realize he had. He's not normally this way with women, but with her, it's just beyond possession. So he doesn't come in her mouth, but he tells her that, when they get to the condo, to hurry up and get inside. And he tells her to bend over on the couch, and so she does, and he fucks her into oblivion. And he was fucking her even harder, and because he was mad at her, because he's like, it's her fault she's making me do this type of shit. And so he fucked her, came, walked off, didn't say a fucking thing to her. And he knew he was being an asshole. He fucking knew it. But he felt like, I gotta separate this some kind of way. He was like, I never should have fucked her, and now I've done it. And so, he's like, he worked so hard to get this company, and so he's not trying to fuck that up. So it did sting her that he walked off, but she was still appreciative of him the next day and thought, you know what, let me do something nice. Let me take him to lunch. So she, of course, is like, let me put on something sexy because she wants to get fucked in that office. So she goes and sees him, and when he's coming out of his office, there's a redhead with him, and she's crying. And so he sees her, and he's like, what are you doing here? So he had like kind of snatched her and pulled her into his office. And she's like, I just want to do something, nice for you. I was, going to ask you if you want to go to lunch. And he's like, you shouldn't have come here. And she's like, thinking like, okay, do you have something going on with the girl? Like, is that why you don't want me here? And he told her, no, the girl just found out she's pregnant. And basically, I guess her modeling career's over, which isn't really true, but okay. So she was like, okay. She was like, he told her, don't come back here unless you're invited. And then he told her, I'm going to be working late all week, so don't wait up. And then he slams the door and leave, and to have her leave. So then she decides, you know what? I'm not going to be waiting at home around for his ass. I'm going out with my friends. She made a couple friends in her classes. One of them was Lila. So she texts Lila and was like, you know what are you guys doing? And Lila's like, oh, we're going bar hopping. So she gets all dressed up sexy, and she's going to go out with them. And she has a fake ID. They don't know she's 18. But she has a fake ID, which Grace gave her when she was like 17. But she's never used it. But she's like, I'm going to use it tonight. So they go to the bar. She drinks. And then one of her friends, I think her name was, I can't remember, one of the other girls, was like, let's go somewhere else. So they go to a strip club. And then she starts thinking, oh, cool, because she didn't have a bachelorette party. So this will be cool, Well, before any entertainment can even come out, guess who shows up? Stefan himself. And he's pissed. And he outs her. He's like, what are you doing here? And he looks at the friends, and he was like, did she tell you she's only 18? And she's not even supposed to be here. And so she was so embarrassed. And so the friends were like, well, I guess maybe you shouldn't be here if you're not 21. So then they leave. They go outside. She's pissed. And we find out he put a tracking thing on her phone. And he did it after Vienna because he didn't trust her. And he kept saying, I need to know where you are at all times. I need to know you're safe. And then they get in the car and he kisses her. It's so ferocious. And then he stops. And then when they get in the condo, he goes to the bathroom, slams the door. She gets in bed. And when he gets in bed, he doesn't reach for her. And so she's just sitting there like, okay, is it because he cares about me or is it something else? So she's just as confused as ever. So the next day he wakes her up and tells her, we're going to New York. So she heard he was going to New York and was like, you're going? And he's like, no, you're coming with me. You can't be trusted. So she packed her stuff. They get on the PJ. Constantine's there, MZ's there, and Luca's there. And she notices a little back and forth with Stefan and his father. And then he comes and sits next to her. She asks, "Are you okay?" He's like, "It's just business." MZ's like, come sit with me, and they talk about pictures and different things like that. And we find out that the pictures that are hanging up in their condo are actually Stefan's mother's. And so she thought that was super sweet. And so she told MZ about her going, drinking and at the strip club. And MZ was like, "Oh my gosh, you're wilder, than I thought you were. And so she starts thinking that maybe he just has a control issue, and maybe he just controls what he cares about. So maybe he does care about her. So we get to New York. They have an event. She dresses up. She looks amazing. It's a fashion show. Great show. Afterwards, they go in the back. The models are busy bubbling around. And then she sees the redhead that she had seen crying. And she goes up to the woman, but the woman was, I could tell someone doesn't really want to talk to you. That's how the woman was acting. So she kind of took a clue and left her alone. And then she saw Constantine introducing models to older men. And it seems like there was an introduction done, and then the models would leave with these men. So she thought that maybe Luca was the father of the redhead's baby, but he's like flirting with other women. And she's thinking, well, you wouldn't do that. And I'm like, nah, if they're not together, it doesn't matter if she's pregnant. You know what I mean? So it's still a possibility. So she just keeps watching. So she tells Stefan what she saw. And he kind of goes, they're adults. They can do what they want. We're just their agents. So then he wants to get her out of there. And he takes her back to the hotel. And he was like, "I'll let you give me one request before I tie your hands up to the bedpost." And then she's like, "Deal." So then he tries to I feel like he's trying to throw her off the scent of the trafficking. That's what I think. Because most of the women are like from Eastern Europe, and she sees something's going on. So I feel like that's why he tried to get her out of there. So the next day he tells her they're basically going to have like a day together, which is, again, this is what really makes me feel like it's got to be some type of trafficking shit, because you haven't tried to spend any time with this fucking woman like this. But he's going to spend a whole fucking day. The family's left. They left that morning on schedule. But you're going to stay here a whole fucking day to spend this time with her. And they go do all kind of stuff. They go to see the public library, which I went to. It is beautiful. The different museums. They even did a carriage ride. Just a dream day. Dinner for two in Tribeca. Absolutely beautiful. So then they get back. Of course, they have an extremely hard fuck. She's extremely happy. And girl knows now she's in love. There's no falling. She's already fallen. She has completely fallen for this man. So Tori decides, she wants to try and make him a nice dinner. So she asked Greta to help her. And so she had kind of told her how to do it. And she would teach her every day. And so the day comes, she makes it. And there were a couple things she just had to leave on simmering for like a few minutes. But she left it on too long. Girl, it burnt. The only thing that survived were scallops. And they were actually really good. So she was so sad because when Stefan came home, he's like, "What is going on?" She's like, "I was trying to make dinner for you, and that was sweet that she tried, but it is what it is." So he took her out for dinner and they had a great time. So after dinner, they get back to the condo. This time it's a slow. It's not the hard fuck. It's like a slow, He did something he's never done before. He starts eating her pussy. She completely loses it because you gotta remember, girl ain't never had that. And so then, of course, after that, then they start fucking, and he's saying something to her. So again, that whole thing of like, you're mine. And he's like, your orgasms are mine. And he was like, come for me. And she did. But when she came, girl said, I love you. And he didn't say it back, but he kissed her. And so she felt like maybe that was his way of saying it. So Tori's dad calls her to have lunch. He's coming into the city, and she says, cool, they have lunch. He's still on his same BS about telling her how to be the type of wife he feels she should be. And she gets a text from MZ who's like, I got photos from us in New York, and I got some really great ones of you and Stefan. And she was like, come by and see him. And she's like, all right, cool. I'll come there when I leave for my dad. So she goes, and Luca and Constantine are arguing. She overhears it, and everything gets exposed. So Constantine is getting after Luca about sleeping with the models and says, you don't sleep with the merchandise. You know, if you want to play with it, you got to pay. I was like, oh my gosh. So it's a whole prostitution ring, aka trafficking. And that's how they get their visas. And yeah, I was like, I knew it. I felt like it was trafficking. I just really felt like it was trafficking. So she runs out of there, gets out. She goes to see her father because she's thinking, this is awful. This is horrible, and my father's going to do something about this. He's a state senator, and she goes and talks to her dad, and her dad looks at her like, okay. And that's when she realizes he fucking knows. And then not too long after that, Stefan comes in, and the look on his face isn't one of shock or surprise. So she's like, he fucking knows. And the girl is like, what the fuck am I into? And that's how it ends. So the next book in the series is called The Secret. And so we're going to dive into that one next week. Let me know what you guys thought of the deal. Now, the only thing I will say, this is my little thing. I felt like we didn't hear from Stefan enough. Like, I would have liked a little bit more balance, like half and half. You know what I mean? And that was my only complaint. I feel like it was too much from her point of view and not from his. And I don't know if maybe because if we hear from him, maybe we would have, gotten the secret sooner. I don't know. But I want a more balanced one, like where we hear more from Stefan, hopefully in the next book. I haven't read it yet, so I'll be just as surprised as you all next week. Again, make sure you go down in those comments. Let me know what you guys think of this. If you are in the market looking for a nice notebook, journal, I do have a link available down below where you can purchase one. As always, I truly do thank you all for your support. Make sure you like and subscribe. And thank you for tuning in to the Always Reading Book Club.